Obviously, domestic violence increases women's risk for unintended pregnancies because they don't always have a lot of control over their choices for their own body. So adolescent girls in abusive relationships are 3.5 times more likely to become pregnant than non-abused girls, and these are adolescents again. Girls who have experienced dating violence are 2.8 times more likely to fear the perceived consequences of negotiating their partner to use a condom. So again, oftentimes they won't do it because of the fear that he's not going to allow it, basically. So a little bit about pregnancy pressure and condom manipulation. So I will read this. So this is from a 17-year-old. Like the first couple of times the condom seems to break every time. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of funny. Like the first 6 times the condom broke, 6 condoms, that's kind of rare. I could have understood 1, but 6. And then after that, when I got on the birth control, he was just like always saying, like, you should have my baby, you should have my daughter, you should have my kid. And we'll see a couple more slides here too of, you know, there's a big push to have babies and also a force to have an abortion. So I don't think people realize always that it goes both ways, but it very much does. So what are other ways partners and assailants or whatever can interfere with women's birth control? Have you guys seen any of that? And
I work at a family planning clinic, and so that's something that we're very much aware of, and we do screen for. But I mean, like, you know, they can hide their pills or throw them away, or
yeah.
you know, change the date of the date that they're due for their next double-prayer shot.
Yeah, they're quite, and it's awesome that you guys are like on that, you know, and thinking about it all of the time.
And it's part of our mandatory training now, you know, with new employees. It's part of.
Wonderful.
We have to deal with it because we know that it happens.
Well, and it's really great, and I know, Julie and Miranda, you guys spoke about services kind of being siloed a little bit too, and sadly and embarrassingly, I don't think that we, even in the domestic violence movement, thought of this too long ago. I mean, it was probably out there, you know, here and there, but where we really, I think it was like, okay, that's a medical thing, and not really understanding how often and how frequent that this happens. And I think part of that is because when they come into services with our place, a lot of times they already have their babies or they're pregnant, and they don't, it's not that they don't want their babies, you know, so then it's not like a thought of, okay, this is a terrible thing he did to me. So by that time, I don't think they bring it up to us very often. So now we're starting to ask a little bit more about it so that we can help them with that. It just is not something we really had thought about.
I'm glad that you're talking about it too, because it needs to be you know, global.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really thankful. A few years ago, we got involved with a project called Project Connect, and we worked a lot with our local teen health center, and so they gave us some of the medical stuff, and we gave them some of the domestic violence stuff, and it really, so it's a good community wraparound at this point. So a little bit more on birth control sabotage. So again, destroying or disposing of contraceptives, impeding condom use, poking holes, not allowing her to obtain or preventing her from using her birth control, and then obviously the threatening behaviors if she does use contraceptives. And part of that, I don't know the percentage offhand, but a lot of times domestic violence in a relationship, like people think, well, why did she have a child with this man? A lot of times the abuse won't start until they get married or they're pregnant. And that is something I never had a comprehension of until I started doing therapy. But it's the ownership. If it's the ownership, they've got them now, and they will be with them for a very long time. So women, including teens, who experiencing physical or emotional intimate partner violence as IPV, are more likely to report not using their preferred method of contraception in the past 12 months. 26.4% of adolescent girls reported that their abusive male partners were trying to get them pregnant. And among teen mothers on public assistance who experienced recent domestic violence, 66% of them reported birth control sabotage, and 34% reported work or school related sabotage, which again keeps them very isolated and dependent on that assailant. So they you know, if you don't go to school or work, and oftentimes we run into the experience of the male even calling the woman a lot at work or making her late. So again, to recognize it as domestic violence, it's usually not that clear. Like if she's late 6 times in the last 2 weeks, people think it's her. She's just being irresponsible, and she doesn't come, you don't come in every day, and it could be, you know, like he hides the car keys. So it's not like she's gonna come in and say, well, he purposely made me late, and they're embarrassed too because now they feel like I've chose this, and I can't be given that as a problem to my work, so they'll either quit or they'll get fired. And it's really, and then again, a further trauma. If you just got fired from your job, it's another trauma to add on. So the lack of control, there's like 3 of these little things in a row, but a lack of control around sex with abusive male partners. So I'm not gonna say he raped me, he didn't use force, but I would be like, no. And then the next thing, he pushes me to the bedroom, and I'm like, I don't wanna do anything. And then we ended up doing it, and I was crying like a baby, and he still did it. And then after that, he got up, took a shower, and I just stayed there like in shock. Again, no control of whether you even have sex. I was, we do presentation or groups in the jail, and a while ago I was there, and a middle-aged woman, I'll say, was looking at our paperwork, and she said to me, how in the world do you get raped when you're married? That doesn't even make sense. And it's just that lack of knowledge that they even have a choice. So hence why we like to go to the groups and get out there. But because to even think that you couldn't be raped is not even a concept in my mind, that you couldn't be raped when you're pregnant, and hers it never entered because you would just have to. Threats to promote a birth, and we'll do one right after this of threats to promote an abortion. So the threats to promote a birth, he really wanted the baby. He wouldn't let me have. He always said, if I find out you have an abortion, you know what I mean, I'm gonna kill you. And so I really was forced into having my son. I didn't want to. I was 18, was real scared. I didn't want to have a baby. I just got into college on a full scholarship. I just found out I wanted to go to college and didn't want to have a baby, but I was really scared, and I was scared of him. So again, absolutely no choice for her whether she had her baby or not. And then there's the opposite, again, still very controlling, but the threat to promote abortions. He really wanted me not to keep it. I was under 18, so we had to go to the neighboring state that didn't have parental consent. And I went to the clinic, and I remember only the lady asked me if I really wanted to have an abortion, but she gave me a paper, and she asked me that if I wanted to do that if nobody else was making me, and I remember I just wanted to leave and not do it because I did want to keep the baby. But he told me, he was next to me, and he went like this, poking her, and told me that, tell her. So again, no option for her own body and whether she chooses to keep her baby or not. Young mothers who experienced physical abuse within 3 months after delivery were nearly twice as likely to have a repeat pregnancy within 24 months. So they've obviously done the work to very clearly see when there's DV and how it correlates to birth. So the definition of reproductive coercion is basically that it involves behavior that a partner uses to maintain power and control in a relationship that are related to reproductive health. So explicit attempts to impregnate her, controlling outcomes of a pregnancy, coercing a partner to have unprotected sex, and interfering with birth control methods. And I'm guessing you guys probably see this again or talk about it more than probably even our clients do when they come into us. But I think it's a really good thing that we're all very familiar with because I think it just happens so often. And again, I think kind of like the woman in the jail had asked me, I don't think people always even realize that this is domestic violence. I think that the woman may feel like, well, and you know, like, well, he's the dad, and that is true. But it isn't in a mutual decision. Even if you want to say he has the right to have equal opinion, it's not equal. He is forcing. It isn't that she has equal say. He is making whatever decision for them, and he is not giving her any say in it. So there's no discussion. This is how it's going to be.